What is going on, guys? In this video today, we're going to be going over the biggest advantages of next-gen console Fortnite. I believe that this video is going to be uploaded on November 14th, so at this point the new Xboxes have been out for about 3 or 4 days now, and the PS5 has been out for about 48 hours. Now I'm not going to lie, I think Microsoft and Sony kinda dropped the ball on the release. It seems like the quantity available was ridiculously low, and because of that, a lot of people that wanted a next-gen console weren't able to get one. Plus, I'm sure there are plenty of you out there that really never planned on getting it on release day anyway, and you're just kinda waiting for Christmas or some other time in the future. So I got an Xbox Series X on release day, and at this point I played a few hours of Fortnite on it. Obviously, I'm still gonna mainly play on PC, but I now believe I have enough playtime to point out the biggest differences between these next-gen consoles and the PS4/Xbox One. This isn't really going to be a full review of whether it's worth it or not. I'll do one of those in the near future. This is just going to show you what you can expect out of the new consoles, and I guess you can kind of draw your own conclusions based on that. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so in my opinion, hands down the biggest difference between next-gen and previous-gen Fortnite are the graphics. I'm a believer that Epic put too much of an emphasis on improving graphics and it made next-gen Fortnite suffer in other aspects, but despite that opinion, I can't deny how good the improvement is, especially if you play on a fully optimized TV/monitor. This was always one of my biggest complaints about going from playing on PC to playing on console. It just felt like everything was so blurry, it was so hard to see people, the colors were all really dull on various parts of the map, etc, etc. I'll even show one or two comparison images that I found from a really cool video online just to give you a visual idea of what I'm talking about. Look at this picture first off. I mean, just compare the first image from the original Xbox to the last one of the Series X. First off, look at the crane tower thing, whatever that is. Like I said, on the original Xbox, it literally does look blurry. Like, you can instantly 100% tell this is from a video game because it doesn't truly look realistic. But then when you compare that with the tower in the last image, it's a night and day difference. There's so much more pop, so much more contrast, the image is just a lot sharper. It legitimately does look like a picture of real life. Also, quickly look at all the trees in the background. On the original Xbox especially, again, just very blurry. It's honestly almost hard to tell that some of them are trees. On next-gen Xboxes, a lot more clear, a lot more vivid, just much better. And then quickly, this second image really emphasizes how much the colors pop on next gen. Just so much less dull, so much less color mixing. It really is an insane improvement as a whole. Now, unfortunately, there are still no graphical customization options on next gen, which I personally think is a bit disappointing. So you still have to deal with things like shadows, for example, which can be very annoying. But when it comes to graphics, it's impossible to deny that there isn't a huge difference. The next thing I want to talk about is the consistency of FPS. Like I'm sure most of you guys already know, the really disappointing news regarding next gen is that it's still going to be capped at 60 FPS. And now that we actually have the consoles in our possession, we know with 100% certainty that there's no way to change that via lowering your graphical settings or anything else. Now again, this can change in the future. Fortnite did drop a pretty major hint towards that a few weeks ago by saying that they were looking into optimizing it more in the future, but as of right now, 60 FPS is all we got. However, one of the biggest advantages of next gen is that it seems like the FPS you get is a lot more consistent. I actually saw an interesting little comparison video where they compared FPS between the old and next gen in various situations, and one of them was simply jumping out of the bus. On old gen, when it happened, you'd be at a consistent 60 FPS, but then as soon as you actually hit the jump button and jumped out, it would drop down to like 50 for 1 to 2 seconds, then go down to 45 for a second, then maybe down to 40, and then it would slowly creep back up until it eventually got back to 60, maybe 5 to 10 seconds later. On the next gen consoles though, as soon as you jumped, it maybe dropped to like 58 for half a second or so, but then it immediately bounced back up to 60 and stayed there. Now of course that isn't the most demanding scenario by any means, but I have seen a few competitive players tweet that it is a lot better in stacked endgames. Obviously it's going to vary a lot based on a bunch of different factors, but on current gen, during stacked endgames, you'd probably average somewhere between about 30 and 40 FPS, and based on what I've seen, it's looking like on next gen, that's going to be more around the 45 to 50 range. So obviously, I think most of us would agree that none of that is as good as being able to get up to 120 FPS, but it is definitely a noticeable and important improvement. The next difference between next gen and current gen is probably the hardest one to actually prove, and it has to do with input delay. I'm totally willing to admit that maybe this is just a placebo or I'm just misremembering things, but to me, playing Fortnite on next gen really did feel smoother than what it felt like on current gen, and it seems like that was mainly due to a decrease in the amount of input lag. Now, I have seen some mixed reviews about this exact point online. I saw a Reddit thread where someone basically asked like, hey, is there less input lag on next gen than there is on current gen? And I saw a very large variety of answers. Some people very definitively said, yes, there's less input lag, it's very noticeable and it makes the game feel a lot smoother. Then I saw some other responses that were more along the lines of, it either felt the same or very slightly better, it isn't a huge improvement. And on Twitter, I saw some of the console pros that got their consoles on release day say similar things as well, just a lot of mixed opinions in general. So maybe it comes down to the controller you're using, or maybe which version of the Xbox/PS5 you got, but I do think that most people will feel at least somewhat of an improvement to the amount of input delay, which is a very good thing, obviously. And the final difference that I want to cover doesn't really affect gameplay at all, but it's huge for just making Fortnite more enjoyable. What I'm referring to here are the significantly decreased loading times on menus, getting into games, getting out of games, etc, etc. Again, I watched some videos that directly compare loading times between the next gen and previous gen consoles, and for almost every type of loading possible, next gen was about 3 to 4 times faster. So for example, the time it took to load into a creative hub on Xbox was roughly 20 seconds, and on the Xbox Series X/S, it was about 5 seconds. That obviously isn't going to do anything to make you a better Fortnite player, but it is a huge convenience. The loading times on the previous gen consoles, especially on Fortnite, are just miserable. Like, there are times you don't even get into the pre-game lobby because your game loads so late. You just go straight from the loading screen into the battle bus. So that's a huge improvement that Microsoft and Sony both hyped up for all games really, and it definitely does show. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you watched the entire thing, be sure to let me know with a comment down the comment section below. Let me know whether you were able to get an Xbox Series X/S or PS5, or if you're possibly waiting for Christmas or some other time in the future. Be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications, do whatever the heck you want, and I will catch you guys next time.